Imagine being laughed at by your own classmates, invited to a party only so they could mock your single dad, without knowing he's worth $100 million. What happened next didn't just shock the bullies. It changed the entire school forever. Stick around, because this story will leave you speechless. Welcome to Brain Fuel, the channel where real-life stories spark powerful lessons. Here, we bring you tales of resilience, justice, and unexpected twists that prove life is never what it seems. If you're ready for stories that fuel your mind and inspire your heart, hit that subscribe button and join the Brain Fuel family today. Look at him, always sitting alone with his books, Ethan whispered, his voice dripping with mockery as he leaned toward his best friend, Tyler. The two sat at the corner table in the bustling cafeteria of Westwood High, their expensive sneakers propped up arrogantly on the bench, designer backpacks carelessly tossed aside. Around them, laughter and chatter filled the air, but their eyes were fixed on one target, Jordan. Jordan, a quiet 16-year-old with sharp, thoughtful eyes, was hunched over a worn-out notebook. Unlike most of the students who scrolled through the latest smartphones or bragged about their parents' luxury cars, Jordan lived in a world of his own. He was polite, humble, and never sought attention. But to Ethan and his clique, that humility wasn't strength. It was weakness. Why does he always eat alone? Tyler smirked. No one ever sees him hanging out after school. No one knows where he lives. Dude's probably broke. His dad's some nobody, you can tell. Ethan grinned, his eyes glinting with cruelty. Exactly. And that's why he makes the perfect target. You know what's funny? He never defends himself. He just sits there, quiet, like he's too scared. I mean, what kind of man raises a kid like that? Must be pathetic. The group of wealthy teenagers erupted in snickers, their laughter echoing louder than necessary, making sure Jordan could hear. Jordan didn't look up. He simply kept writing, though his hands trembled slightly. Deep down, he was used to this. Every day at Westwood High felt like a test of endurance. You see, Westwood wasn't just any school. It was one of the most prestigious in the city, filled with the sons and daughters of business executives, celebrities, and politicians. Rolls-Royces and Ferraris pulled up at the gates every morning. Chauffeurs held umbrellas for their teenage passengers, and conversations in the hallways often revolved around ski trips in Switzerland or luxury vacations in the Maldives. Jordan, however, blended into the background. He wore simple clothes, clean but not branded. He used an older phone that some students sneered at as ancient. He never boasted about family wealth or upcoming trips because, frankly, he didn't care about impressing people. But Ethan and his clique cared. Too much. They thrived on tearing down anyone who didn't match their shallow image of status. And Jordan, with his quiet dignity, was their favorite canvas for cruelty. As the week of Ethan's grand birthday party approached, the chatter in the halls grew feverish. Everyone wanted to be there. It wasn't just a birthday, it was a spectacle. Ethan's parents owned one of the largest real estate companies in the state, and their mansion was a crown jewel of the city. Every year, the party featured live DJs, catered food, fireworks, and sometimes even surprise celebrity appearances. Bro, this year's party is going to be insane, Tyler said excitedly. Everyone's coming. Even seniors who graduated last year are talking about it. Ethan smirked. Of course, it's the event of the year. Then, suddenly, his grin widened into something more sinister. And you know what would make it even more fun? Let's invite Jordan. Tyler's eyes lit up in amusement. Jordan? The loner? Why? Because it'll be hilarious, Ethan replied. Imagine him showing up in his little thrift store clothes while everyone else is dripping in designer. And his dad. Oh man, can you picture it? Probably some tired, overworked guy who doesn't even know what a party like this looks like. Let's invite them both. Front row seats for the humiliation. The group howled with laughter, the plan sounding brilliant in their shallow, arrogant minds. To them, this wasn't cruelty. It was entertainment. The next day, Ethan swaggered over to Jordan's table. For once, Jordan looked up, surprised. Ethan never talked to him directly unless it was to mock him. Hey, Jordan, Ethan said, plastering on a fake smile. Guess what? I'm inviting you to my birthday party this weekend. It's going to be massive. Music, food, everyone's going to be there. And you should totally bring your dad. It'll be fun. The tone was warm on the surface, but Jordan could feel the hidden venom beneath it. He hesitated. He wanted to decline, to walk away, to avoid the trap, but something in Ethan's expectant stare held him frozen. Before he could respond, Ethan clapped him on the back dramatically, loud enough for everyone around to hear. "Awesome," it settled then. "See you there." As Ethan strutted away, his friends laughed behind him. To them, this was just another prank, another show of power. That night, Jordan sat at the small kitchen table in his modest home. His father, Marcus, was across from him, sipping tea after a long day. Marcus was a tall man with a quiet strength in his presence. His calm demeanor radiated respect without needing to raise his voice. "Dad," Jordan began softly, sliding the glossy invitation across the table. I think I was invited to a party." Marcus raised an eyebrow, taking the invitation in his hands. He read it carefully, then glanced at his son. "And you don't seem too happy about it." Jordan sighed. "I don't think they really want me there. They mock me all the time. I think it's another joke." Marcus leaned back, thoughtful. For years, he had seen how others treated his son. He knew people made assumptions when they didn't see the flash of wealth or status symbols. But Marcus had built his entire life around humility and quiet resilience. He smiled faintly and placed a reassuring hand on Jordan's shoulder. "Son, sometimes people reveal who they really are when they think no one is watching. If they invited us, maybe we should go. Not for them, but for you. Let's go and see what happens." Jordan hesitated, but the calm confidence in his father's voice made him nod. Little did he know, the night of that party would change everything. The night of Ethan's grand party arrived, and the entire city seemed to buzz with excitement. Ethan's parents had spared no expense, turning their sprawling mansion into something that resembled a luxury resort. Colored spotlights danced across the sky, illuminating the manicured lawns. A red carpet stretched across the driveway where luxury cars, Lamborghinis, Bentleys, and even a Rolls-Royce lined up as though it were a celebrity event. Inside, caterers in crisp black uniforms carried trays of sparkling drinks and hors d'oeuvres that looked too fancy for high schoolers to even pronounce. A professional DJ blasted the latest hits, shaking the glass windows with heavy bass. Everywhere, kids in designer outfits snapped selfies and recorded videos, eager to show off that they were part of the party of the year. And then, amid the glittering chaos, Jordan and his father, Marcus, quietly arrived. Jordan fidgeted nervously in his plain button-down shirt and simple sneakers. Compared to the other teens decked out in Gucci, Balenciaga, and Louis Vuitton, he felt invisible, or worse, like the punchline of a cruel joke. His palms were sweaty, his chest heavy with the dread of what he suspected was coming. Marcus, however, walked beside him with a calm, unshakable confidence. He wore a neatly pressed blazer, not flashy, but dignified. He carried himself with the kind of posture that turned heads, not because of what he wore, but because of who he was. "Dad," Jordan whispered as they approached the glowing mansion, "maybe we should just turn around. You don't have to see this. I know they only invited me to make fun of us." Marcus paused, resting a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. "Jordan, people can only mock you if you give them permission to. Remember, the loudest voices often come from the emptiest hearts. Hold your head high no matter what." Jordan nodded reluctantly, drawing a shaky breath as they stepped onto the red carpet. The reaction was immediate. Heads turned. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Wait!" Jordan actually came. "Is that his dad? He doesn't even look like he belongs here. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so good." A group of girls near the entrance tried to hide their giggles as they looked Marcus up and down. One boy elbowed another and whispered, "Man, they must be lost. This isn't their kind of scene." Jordan's face burned, but Marcus didn't flinch. Instead, he greeted the nearest student with a polite nod, as if he had just stepped into a boardroom instead of battlefield of teenage arrogance. Ethan, noticing their arrival, quickly strutted over with a grin, so wide it almost looked painful. His friends followed, forming a semicircle around the newcomers, their eyes sparkling with anticipation of the humiliation they thought was about to unfold. "Jordan, you made it, bro." Ethan exclaimed loudly, clapping him on the shoulder with exaggerated friendliness. And, oh, this must be your dad? Marcus, right? He extended his hand, smirk tugging at his lips. Nice to finally meet you. Thanks for gracing us with your presence. Marcus shook his hand firmly, his grip steady, his expression unreadable. The pleasure is mine, Ethan. Thank you for inviting us. Ethan's friends chuckled under their breath. To them, Marcus's polite tone sounded almost naive. They exchanged looks as if to say, this is going to be even easier than we thought. Inside the mansion, the spectacle only grew louder. Students lounged on expensive leather couches. Others danced beneath the flashing lights, and groups crowded around buffet tables filled with gourmet food most of them wouldn't even touch. As Marcus and Jordan stepped in, a ripple of whispers followed them. Some kids stared openly, amused by the idea of a single dad walking into such a scene. Others sneered, ready to see what kind of embarrassment might unfold. Ethan wasted no time. He grabbed a microphone from the DJ and announced theatrically, "Ladies and gentlemen, look who decided to join us tonight, Jordan and his dad. Let's give them a big welcome." The crowd clapped half-heartedly, some laughing outright, while Jordan felt his stomach twist. He wanted to disappear into the floor. But Marcus simply smiled and nodded toward the crowd, as though he was entirely unbothered. Ethan leaned closer to his friends and whispered, "Watch this." Then, turning to Marcus, he said loudly enough for others to hear, "So, Marcus, what do you do for work? Must be tough raising a kid all on your own, huh?" His tone was dripping with sarcasm, his words chosen to sting. A few kids snickered. One whispered, "Bet he's some construction worker or janitor or something." Another chimed in, "Or maybe unemployed." Jordan's cheeks flamed with humiliation, but Marcus kept his calm demeanor. He didn't rush to defend himself. Instead, he studied Ethan for a long moment, his eyes steady, his silence making Ethan strangely uncomfortable. Then Marcus simply replied, "Yes, raising a son on my own has its challenges, but it's also the greatest privilege of my life." The simplicity of the answer caught Ethan off guard. He had expected Marcus to stumble or get defensive. Instead, the man's words carried such quiet dignity that for a brief moment, the smirk slipped from Ethan's face. But Tyler, eager to keep the joke alive, jumped in. "So, what do you guys even do for fun? Jordan never talks about vacations or, normal stuff like that. Do you guys just stay home all the time?" The laughter bubbled again, louder this time. A girl snapped a photo of Marcus and Jordan, whispering, "This is going to be hilarious to post later." Jordan clenched his fists under the table. He wanted to run, but again, his father's hand came to rest gently on his shoulder. "Steady," Marcus whispered so only Jordan could hear. "The truth doesn't need to rush. It reveals itself in time." As the night wore on, Ethan and his friends kept prodding, each comment a carefully sharpened blade meant to cut deeper than the last. They asked about Marcus's job, his house, his car, each time exaggerating their own luxury in contrast. But through it all, Marcus remained unshaken. He answered politely when he chose to, and when he didn't, he simply smiled, leaving his silence to do the work. That silence, Jordan noticed, unsettled some of the kids more than words ever could. What none of them realized, though, was that Marcus wasn't staying quiet out of weakness. He was waiting, watching, allowing them to reveal their true selves before he revealed who he really was. And before the night was over, every arrogant laugh in that mansion would choke in their throats when the truth came crashing down on them. Inside Ethan's mansion, the party was in full swing. The music pounded, the laughter echoed, and the air smelled of expensive perfume mixed with catered food. To everyone else, it was the night of the year. But for Jordan, it felt like standing in the middle of the circus where he was the main act and the punchline. Marcus sat calmly at one of the long dining tables, his presence steady but commanding. He didn't need to say much. The way he carried himself drew glances. Some students studied him curiously, whispering about his calm posture, his sharp suit, and his quiet confidence. Others, like Ethan's clique, only saw it as more fuel for their game. Ethan, energized by the laughter of his friends, strutted to the center of the room like he was hosting a late-night comedy show. "Ladies and gentlemen," he called, his voice amplified over the music. "We have a very special guest tonight. Our very own Jordan and his dad." The spotlight, literally, swung toward them as the DJ dimmed the music, grinning as though he was in on the joke. Jordan froze, his heart pounding in his chest. All eyes turned. "Come on up, Jordan." Ethan continued, "Don't be shy. And bring your dad, too. We'd love to get to know the mystery man who raised you." The crowd chuckled. Someone clapped sarcastically. Jordan's legs felt like cement, but Marcus stood, placing a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder before leading the way. When they reached the center, Ethan circled them like a predator. "So, Marcus, single dad, huh? That must be exhausting. How do you even manage? Raising a kid, working some job, trying to keep the lights on?" His tone was dripping with fake pity. A few teens gasped and giggled. One whispered, "This is brutal." Marcus, unbothered, met Ethan's eyes. "Raising Jordan is not exhausting. It's an honor. And as for keeping the lights on," he added with the faintest smile, "we manage just fine." His calmness irritated Ethan. He wanted Marcus to crack, to look embarrassed, to give the crowd the spectacle they craved. "Fine, fine," Ethan said dramatically, turning back to his audience. "But let's be real, guys. Don't you ever wonder why Jordan never talks about vacations? Or family businesses? Or luxury cars?" He glanced back at Marcus with mock curiosity. "So tell us, Marcus, what do you actually do for work?" The room went silent, everyone leaning in. Phones were raised, recording. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. The big reveal of the supposed mediocrity. Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked around the room, taking in the sea of eager faces, the judgmental smirks, the mocking eyes. Finally, he said evenly, "I build. That's what I do." Ethan pounced on it. "Build? Oh, construction. That explains it." His friends burst into laughter, slapping each other on the back. "Hey, maybe he builds birdhouses," Tyler shouted. "Or maybe dog houses," another added. The laughter exploded again. Jordan clenched his fist so tightly his knuckles turned white. His face burned with shame, his throat aching with words he couldn't say. He wanted to scream the truth, that his dad was more successful than all their families combined. But Marcus squeezed his shoulder again, silently telling him, "Not yet." Ethan, sensing the crowd's energy, pushed further. He raised his glass dramatically and called out, "A toast, everyone, to Jordan and his dad, who remind us that not everyone can live like us. But hey, at least they showed up." The room erupted with laughter and applause. Some kids raised their glasses. Others doubled over, tears in their eyes from laughing so hard. Jordan's humiliation felt unbearable. His ears rang, his chest tightened, and he wished the floor would swallow him whole. For a brief second, he considered running out the door and never looking back. But then he looked at his dad. Marcus wasn't angry. He wasn't flustered. He wasn't even frowning. He simply stood there, tall and composed, with a small, knowing smile tugging at his lips. "Dad," Jordan whispered through gritted teeth, "why are you letting them do this? Why don't you just tell them who you are?" Marcus bent down slightly, his voice calm. "Because, son, sometimes the truth means more when it arrives last. Let them have their moment. Ours is coming." Jordan swallowed hard, fighting back tears. He trusted his father, but the humiliation burned too deep. The crowd's laughter grew louder, crueler, and yet Marcus didn't move, didn't react. One girl with perfectly styled hair raised her phone and said loudly, "Smile, Marcus. I'm putting this on my story. Single dad crashing Ethan's mansion." The crowd howled again. Marcus finally turned his gaze toward her. His eyes were sharp but calm, and something in his steady look made her lower her phone without even realizing why. It was as though his presence alone carried an authority they couldn't define. Still, the mockery didn't stop. Ethan leaned casually against a chair and smirked. "You know, Marcus, it's really brave of you to show up here. Most people would be embarrassed. But hey, maybe you'll get some business cards out of this, right?" The crowd roared again, some clapping at the cruelty. Jordan felt his stomach twist. He couldn't take it anymore. "Dad, please, can we go?" he whispered desperately. But Marcus simply shook his head gently. "Not yet. They need to finish first." That phrase, "they need to finish first," echoed in Jordan's mind. What could his father possibly mean? Minutes stretched on like hours. The mockery kept flowing. Jokes about cheap clothes, single fathers, small houses, and low-class lives. Each comment was sharper than the last. But Marcus stood through it all, absorbing the storm without breaking. The more he stayed calm, the more unsettled some students became. A few in the back began whispering. Why isn't he reacting? Doesn't he care? Others started to shift uncomfortably, as though the cruelty was starting to feel less funny and more cruel. But Ethan pressed on, desperate to squeeze every laugh out of his audience. He strutted to the center again, raising his glass high. "To Marcus, the man of the hour," he declared mockingly. "Thanks for showing us what life looks like on the other side. May we never end up like you." The laughter that followed was the loudest yet. But what Ethan didn't realize was that this was also the last laugh he and his friends would have at Marcus's expense. Because Marcus was done waiting. And when he finally spoke his truth, the entire mansion would fall silent in a way no one would forget. The laughter was still echoing off the marble walls of the mansion when Marcus finally lifted his hand, a subtle gesture that silenced even the rowdiest voices. It wasn't forceful. It didn't need to be. Something about his presence, calm yet commanding, drew every eye in the room. Jordan, still tense and embarrassed, glanced at his father in confusion. Was he finally going to defend himself? Marcus stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "Thank you for the toast, Ethan. And thank you all for your hospitality tonight." His words carried no anger, no obvious sarcasm, yet the room instantly grew quieter. Even the DJ lowered the music unconsciously. He paused, letting the silence hang, before continuing. "It's interesting, isn't it? How quickly people assume things about others based on appearances. A shirt, a pair of shoes. A quiet boy at school who doesn't brag about vacations or cars." A ripple went through the crowd. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others straightened in their seats, curious now. Marcus's eyes swept across the room. "You see, when I walked into this house tonight, I heard whispers. I saw the smirks. I even endured the jokes. That's fine. I've lived long enough to know that arrogance often comes from insecurity." Ethan, still clutching his glass, forced a laugh. "Hey, relax, man. It was just a joke." Marcus turned his gaze on him, steady as stone. A joke at someone else's expense is never just a joke. It's a mirror reflecting who you are. The room went completely silent. Jordan stared at his dad in awe. For the first time that night, he saw the crowd beginning to lose their confidence. Then Marcus continued, his tone calm but with new weight that made every word land like a stone in water. "Since you asked earlier, Ethan, let me tell you what I do. I said I build. That's true, but not birdhouses or doghouses, as some of you joked." He paused again, scanning the room. Every student, every guest, leaned forward unconsciously, as though drawn in by a magnet. "I built a company," Marcus said finally, "from the ground up, a company that started in a tiny garage with nothing but an idea, long nights, and faith. That company today employs more than 600 people across this country. We design and develop technology that powers some of the very devices you're holding in your hands right now." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some students instinctively looked down at their phones, as if expecting to see his company's name engraved on them. Marcus didn't stop. "That company is valued at over $100 million. And yet, most of you looked at my son and assumed he had nothing. You looked at me and assumed I was weak, struggling, or unworthy of being here." The silence was deafening. Ethan's smirk was gone, replaced by a pale face and wide eyes. His friends shifted uncomfortably, no longer laughing. Jordan's heart pounded, not from shame this time, but from pride. His father, the man they had mocked, stood taller than ever, not with arrogance, but with undeniable truth. Marcus stepped closer to the center of the room. His voice softened, but the quietness only made it more powerful. "Do you know what true wealth is? It's not the car you drive or the clothes you wear. It's not the mansion you throw parties in. True wealth is the ability to hold your head high no matter where you are, to treat others with dignity, and to give without expecting anything in return. He looked directly at Ethan now. You have money, Ethan. That much is clear. But wealth? That's different. Wealth is character. And from what I've seen tonight, that's something still waiting to be built. The crowd murmured, uncomfortable but captivated. Some of the teens who had laughed the loudest now looked down at the floor, unable to meet Marcus's gaze. One girl raised her hand timidly, like she was in class. Wait, are you saying you're a millionaire? Like for real? Marcus smiled faintly. Yes, but it's not about the number. It's about what you do with it. My son doesn't brag about vacations or cars because we don't measure ourselves by those things. He has grown up learning that humility is stronger than arrogance, and kindness is greater than cruelty. Jordan's chest swelled with emotion. For so long, he had endured whispers, stares, and jokes. Tonight, in just a few sentences, his father had turned the tables without shouting, without boasting, just by speaking truth. Ethan, desperate to save face, tried to laugh it off. Okay, so maybe you're successful. Big deal. Still doesn't change. But Marcus cut him off gently. What it changes, Ethan, is perspective. You thought mocking us would make you stronger. Instead, it revealed your weakness. Remember this. You never know who you're speaking to or what battles they fought to stand where they are. So choose your words carefully. The words landed like a hammer. Ethan's face turned red, his confidence crumbling in front of everyone. His friends no longer looked amused. They looked exposed. Marcus turned back to crowd, his voice steady and warm now. I don't share this to embarrass anyone. I share it because there is a lesson here. Don't measure people by what you see on the surface. Measure them by how they treat others, by the respect they give, by the kindness they show. That is what lasts. Money fades, status fades, but character's forever. For the first time all evening, the crowd applauded, not mockingly, but sincerely. A few even stood, clapping louder than the rest. The DJ, unsure what else to do, raised the music slightly, but it couldn't drown out the shift in atmosphere. Jordan's classmates stared at him differently now. No longer as a quiet boy they thought was beneath them, but as the son of man who had achieved more than all their parents combined. Not just in money, but in dignity. Jordan blinked back tears, whispering, Dad, that was incredible. Marcus smiled softly and patted his shoulder. Remember, son, it's not about proving them wrong. It's about showing them what right looks like. And in that single moment, the balance of the night had completely shifted. The air inside Ethan's mansion was different now. Moments earlier, the space had been filled with cruel laughter, but now it buzzed with uneasy silence and heavy reflection. Students who had jeered at Jordan only an hour before found themselves avoiding eye contact, shifting uncomfortably in their expensive shoes. Others whispered quietly to each other, trying to process what had just happened. Marcus's words still hung in the air like a truth that couldn't be shaken off. His calm dismantling of arrogance had cut deeper than any angry outburst ever could. It wasn't just Ethan who had been exposed. It was everyone who had laughed along, everyone who had judged based on appearances, everyone who thought humility meant weakness. Jordan stood next to his father, shoulders straighter than they'd ever been. For years he had walked the hallways of Westwood High with his head down, shrinking under the weight of ridicule. Tonight, for the first time, he felt taller, not because of wealth, but because of dignity. But Ethan wasn't ready to surrender. His face burned with humiliation, his pride bruised in front of the very crowd he thrived on impressing. Desperation clung to him as he stammered. So what? Just because you've got money doesn't make you better than us. This is still my party. You don't belong here. A murmur spread across the room. The arrogance in Ethan's tone now sounded hollow, even pathetic. A girl near the back whispered loudly enough for others to hear. Actually, they belong here more than you do. Several students nodded in agreement. Ethan's eyes widened. The crowd that had always cheered him on was turning. His kingdom was crumbling before him, and it was happening faster than he could control. Marcus didn't raise his voice, didn't gloat, didn't even look angry. He simply stepped closer to Ethan and said, You're right about one thing, Ethan. Money doesn't make anyone better. What makes you better, or worse, is how you treat the people around you. Tonight, you had the chance to lead with kindness. Instead, you chose cruelty. That's not strength. That's weakness hiding behind laughter. The words hit harder than any insult. Ethan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His usual smirk was gone, replaced by a hollow stare. Tyler, his closest friend, finally broke the silence. Man, maybe you went too far. The crowd rippled again, this time with agreement. Yeah, that was harsh. He embarrassed himself, not them. Jordan's dad? Wow, that was powerful. Ethan's face turned crimson. For the first time, he felt the sting of being the outcast, the one everyone whispered about. The humiliation he had planned for Jordan had come full circle, and it was unbearable. Sensing that enough had been said, Marcus gently placed a hand on Jordan's shoulder. Come on, son. Let's go. As they walked toward the door, something unexpected happened. A small group of students followed them, not to mock, but to apologize. One girl approached Jordan hesitantly. Hey, I'm sorry for laughing earlier. Your dad's right. We were wrong. Another added, yeah, honestly, I admire you. You've been through all this, and you never brag, never try to prove anything. That takes strength. Jordan's throat tightened, overwhelmed by the sudden shift. For so long, he had been invisible or ridiculed. Now, respect was blooming where cruelty had once thrived. Marcus gave them a polite nod, but didn't linger. He wasn't there for validation. He had made his point. Together, he and Jordan stepped out into the cool night air, leaving the mansion and its flashing lights behind. Outside, the driveway still glimmered with rows of luxury cars. But to Jordan, none of it mattered anymore. The pride he felt in his father outshone every Ferrari and Lamborghini parked outside. As they walked toward their modest car, Jordan finally spoke. Dad, you didn't have to do that. You could have stayed quiet. You could have let them laugh. Marcus unlocked the car and turned to face his son. You're right. I could have. But then they would have walked away believing their cruelty was strength. And one day, they'd use that same cruelty on someone else who might not have the strength to endure it. Sometimes, Jordan, we speak up not for ourselves, but for those who come after us. Jordan swallowed hard, tears pricking his eyes. I'm proud of you, Dad. Marcus smiled softly, pulling him into a brief hug. And I'm proud of you. You endured their mockery with dignity. That's what matters. Back inside the mansion, the party never recovered its energy. The music played, the lights flashed, but the mood had shifted permanently. Students whispered not about Ethan's wealth, but about Marcus's words. Some even pulled out their phones. Not to laugh at Jordan, but to look up Marcus's company, shocked to discover everything he had said was true. And Ethan? He sat in the corner, humiliated, abandoned by the very friends who had once worshipped him. For the first time, he realized that money couldn't protect him from the truth. The next week at school, things were different. The stares Jordan had grown used to were gone. Instead, classmates greeted him with nods of respect. Some even asked him questions, genuinely curious about his father's work. But Jordan always answered humbly, just like his dad had taught him. Even the teachers noticed a change. One remarked in class, "It's amazing how a single night can change perspectives." As for Ethan, his popularity crumbled. People no longer laughed at his jokes or followed his lead. He had been exposed, and the humiliation of that night clung to him like a shadow. But Marcus's lesson lived on. Students began to think twice before mocking others, realizing that the quiet kid in the corner might carry a story bigger than they could imagine. For Jordan, life didn't suddenly become perfect, but it became lighter. He no longer felt the weight of constant ridicule. Instead, he walked with his head higher, knowing that respect didn't come from proving yourself to others. It came from staying true to who you are. And Marcus? He remained the same humble, wise man he had always been. To him, that night wasn't about revealing his wealth. It was about revealing a truth, that arrogance is fragile, but dignity is unshakable. As father and son drove home under the quiet night sky, Marcus glanced at Jordan and said, "Remember this night, son. not because of the money, but because of the lesson. True strength isn't in showing off what you have. It's in how you carry yourself when others try to tear you down. Jordan nodded, the words sinking deep into his heart. He knew he would never forget. And at Westwood High, the story of Ethan's party spread far and wide. Not as a tale of a flashy mansion or expensive cars, but as a night a single father taught an entire school the meaning of true wealth.